Welcome to the Property Experts podcast, where you'll find open conversations, no bullshit attitudes, and deep dive insights from award-winning property developers and business owners, Ben Richards and Jack Jiggins. Together, they've delivered over 40 million in gross development value over the last 5 years and have a pipeline of over 25 million to deliver in the next 18 months. They've built numerous other seven-figure businesses with six-figure net profits around their property ecosystem, and it's by no means been an easy ride. So on this podcast, they'll share their weekly trials and tribulations running multiple businesses, giving you never before seen insights into the inner workings of finding, funding, designing, delivering, and selling award-winning property deals, together with golden nuggets of advice through the 5 key areas of any business: marketing, sales, operations, finance, and talent. If you're a young entrepreneur looking to get started, or have a small team but you're looking to scale your business to the next level, this is the No Bullshit podcast for you. Hello and welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Property Experts podcast with me, Ben Richards, and Jack Jiggins, where we talk about the highs and lows of business, entrepreneurship, and property. For the jam-packed episode today, it's the 31st of May 2024 for those listening on the podcast. And the agenda today is, number one, we're talking about the HMO Awards, which we will be attending later today. Spoiler alert, this is pre-recorded because we will be busy understanding whether or not we've won any awards at the HMO Awards later. Number two, we are in the press and we're going to be talking about some PR stuff that we're doing soon, which is very exciting. We haven't done much of that before, so excited to see where that leads. 3, Jack's going to be having a look at some company annual reports and talking about what you can learn from them. There's loads of really good insights, and it really helps you sort of sharpen up your financial mind and your business mind. Number 4, I'm going to be talking about show homes, furniture packs, and more, and how to sort of sell your sites quicker and for more money. 5, learning to say no as a business owner and entrepreneur. It's very, very difficult to say no when you just want to do everything. We're going to be talking about some of the trips and hazards that people get into and things you could do to improve upon saying no to people and being more focused. 6, what are R&D tax credits? 7, team reviews and how we structure them in our business, because we're going through our sort of half-year review period now. So we're going to be talking about the best ways of getting the best out of your teams. And then top tips for business planning. And once again, your questions answered. And we thank you to numerous people this week who have posted in their questions. And we're going to be talking through, I think, 2 or 3 questions from one person, which is great. So I hope you're listening today, because we will be answering all the questions that you ask. So let's move on to the HMO Awards.
Yeah, good. So the photo you can see was, we were pleasured to be there 2 years ago. It hasn't been on for a year. I think there was an issue with the venue or something along those lines, and they really wanted to make sure that they put on a good event. Just to give you a bit of an overview of what the event is, it's ran by Van and Helen from Coho, the founders of Coho. Their vision was to have a HMO relevant property awards ceremony that was leaning a bit more towards a festival than an awards ceremony. So it's fun, there's TED Talks, there's good structures, you can learn a lot, you can meet a lot of people, and then there's obviously the awards and some good food, and then some dancing and drinks.
Yeah, for those listening, could you explain what Coho is? Because some people might.
Yeah, of course. So Coho, we actually stumbled upon probably 3.5, 4 years ago in Central Suites. It's a property management software like Arthur or Connection, and we just actually found it to be the best, most intuitive. Van is an absolute beast. His brain is super valuable, and he rolls up his sleeves and deals with niggles in the platform to make sure the customer experience is as good as it can be, and also the tenant experience is as good as it can be. So we've now been using Coho for a while now. I think 3.5, 4 years, probably longer than anything else, for our property management software. So highly recommended. If anyone wants an intro, reach out. Now, I definitely recommend it if you have buy-to-lets, HMOs, or anything like that. For as far as property management software goes, is really good. It's probably worthwhile actually telling you what other softwares we use. So we use PayProp for payment management, and we also use Goodlord for referencing and documents. So those 3 are our main sort of portals for managing our portfolio.
Nice.
But the exciting news is we're forward for, we got nominated for 2 awards. And we've managed to finalist in one of those, which is Progressive Social Housing Investor in Aparo. So that will be our Aparo team, including Ben and I, that will be sitting on the edge of our seats to see if we win that award. Central Suites came runner-up last year, and frustratingly, but we know it's a super competitive category, XP and Central Suites sort of combined applied for best residential to HMO conversion, and we didn't get finalists, and our deal was a stonking deal, something like 65-70% ROI. So God knows what people are out there are actually doing, because hats off to them. Anything else to add, Ben?
Yeah, just that, we don't actually talk about our social housing stuff enough really on these podcasts. I mean, it's a real beast, and it kind of started as a side hustle, but that side hustle's turned into a £20 million portfolio across 14 assets and 114 beds that we're sort of tenanting very vulnerable people down in South London. It's been a real learning experience, and hopefully we can share a little bit more about that in future episodes, because I'm conscious actually we don't share a huge amount of that.
Yeah, I'd also just like to say, if you're a business owner out there and you're sort of thinking to some degree, how do we get nominated for awards, and why would we apply for awards, and we're actually up for another award in about a month's time for another Blue Bricks magazine, is it's great PR for your business. To say you're an award-winning business is in my opinion, 3-4x just saying you're a business. So it's definitely something to make sure that your hat is in the ring for. And you can reach out to these award companies and sort of understand the application process, whether you need to be nominated, what you need to be doing. So it definitely is worth setting time aside. I will add there's some awards which might not have the same gravitas in the market as others. So do your homework. But any award's better than nothing. And I will also say the one thing to be really cautious of is actually the award application process. So the Property Investor Awards is super, super detailed and long-winded. The Blue Bricks Award that we did, it's just a 5-minute video, which I absolutely love, because it means everyone's got 5 minutes. It doesn't take forever, and there is an element of however well you portray everything in that video is to some degree, rather than it being acres and acres of paper. And one of the reasons I love it is because if I was a judge, I would much rather watch 50 5-minute videos than read application after application after application. So check the application process and also the cost. So there's a cost to apply for Property Investor Awards. Don't believe there is for the HMO Awards. There isn't for the Blue Brick Awards, but there's tons of awards and things that you could be looking at out there.
Nice. Good. So fingers crossed for later today at the HMO Awards. It's actually hosted in Stowe School in Buckinghamshire, or Buckingham, which is an incredible place if you've not been there or seen it before. Absolutely incredible building. So I'm sure you'll see lots of social media posts later today across our various platforms. So do check that out.
Last but not least, XP Surveys sponsoring the event. So if you are going, come and find us, and we've got a specialist secret discount if you come up to us and ask us what that is.
Oh, I'm intrigued. I don't even know what it is. Find out later. Cool. So number 2, we are in the press. We've not done a huge amount of PR stuff. We've not written a huge amount of articles, but we, as of I think the deadline is today to get all of our stuff over to the Independent newspaper. So we're going to be part of their Business Insider. It's going to be all about kind of our journey over the last 7-8 years in terms of entrepreneurship and property and growing the various businesses that we've grown. And as part of that article, there will be this video, which there's a screenshot for those of you watching on YouTube. But it's a 9-minute long video of Jack and I at various sites explaining about our ecosystem of businesses, discussing some of the key metrics of things that we've delivered in terms of £80 million worth of sort of property transactions, and how long we've been in the game, and some of our case studies of our projects. And it's just something that this will go on our YouTube channel as well as like this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we've grown. Looking basically our avatar sort of target market is investment partners, and that's kind of hopefully what we're doing here by appealing to them and showing them the credibility and trust that we've built within the industry. And PR like this is a massive way of increasing your trustworthiness and credibility. So super excited to get to launch that next week or next month. The deadline for our video is today. So Christina's been busy video editing over the last couple of weeks. What I've shown on screen, which is just a little hack and tip for people if you're doing a lot of video content. Dropbox offer a platform called Dropbox Replay, and it's what you see on screen. You basically upload your video, and it is an online platform where you can comment on the video. So instead of maybe doing your own Loom video to kind of give your comments to your video editor, or sending an email with a massive long list of things, making reference to timestamps and all this sort of stuff, it is dedicated to video editing feedback. So you'll see on the screen, I can share feedback at various points along the timeline. So you can see Jack's made some comments, I've made some comments. On the right-hand side here, you can see all the comments and the various timestamps associated with them. You can actually scribble on the screen. So if you want to put a big box somewhere, and instead of typing, put a box in the top right-hand corner, you can actually scribble a box the size that you want it, and make a comment, say, add text here that says call to action button or whatever you want to do. So it's a really, really useful tool. I think there is a small charge, but if you're doing lots of video editing with your video editor, it's a hugely beneficial way of getting across, very quickly your feedback for them to start, making those tweaks and edits and improving the video. So yeah, hopefully that helps out a few people. But yeah, looking forward to being in the Independent Business Insider, and we'll share the article as soon as it's finished, and also share the video as soon as it's finished as well. Cool. And if you want to know more about our boardroom stuff and our one-to-one consultancy, do head over to our website. I mentioned it last week, and I'm going to mention it again because the slides are still here. But we had a really good call, a one-to-one consulting call with Daniel and Vlad last week with Blue Sun Property. They've got some interesting stuff going on over in Wales and Bristol, and they're in full-time work at the moment, want to venture out into property, which is a lot of the consultants and mentees that we have on board kind of want to do a similar thing, or the very, very start of their sort of property journey, I guess. And yeah, it was a great thing to help them, give them a few tips and tricks on the schemes that they're looking at currently. And the feedback that they gave us was thanks again for the session, really valuable, and looking forward to receiving the resources. So every session generally we'll talk through some of the resources that we use in XP Property, and we can obviously share them with our mentees. So if you want some consultancy, an hour here, an hour there, or want to join our boardroom group for a more intensive sort of 4-hour-long session every month, then do get in touch. Cool. On to point number 3. So company annual reports and what you can learn. I think this is I'm interested to see what Jack has to say, but I actually love kind of reading financial reports, looking at Companies House, looking at annual statements, going on businessesforsale.com and looking at kind of what else is out there. And you just learn so much by osmosis, just reading about other people's, financial reporting and how they structure things and their business models, etc. So yeah, I think there's huge amounts that can be learned from this.
Yeah, completely agree. Sometimes with businesses for sale, though, they go through a period of cutting huge amounts of costs, increasing profit margin. Just coincidentally, the last couple of years, they're looking to exit.
And they always use EBITDA as well, which for like service-based businesses like us, it's actually irrelevant. Like I want to know net profit. I don't. It's inflating the true picture, which I guess, if you're selling anything, you're going to do that. So I get it.
Completely agree. I mean, the main point to really touch on is we're all business owners. We should all really have a business plan. If you went on an MBA, you'd be tasked with making a business plan for a business. A lot of the people that do MBAs don't have a business, so they have to do it on someone else's business. A friend of ours, Dorian, we always share random and weird articles with each other and comment on them. It's good to get also a geek buddy that you like reviewing business plans with. But he shared this with me last night, and I just spent an hour probably reading through it and understanding how a big company that's slightly different in a slightly different industry. What I loved about reading about this company is they're a group, and they've got loss leaders in the group, and they've got profit makers in the group, which I also think is a really good. It's a really good thing for us to read that, because they've got companies turning over 70 million net profit, and they've got companies losing 9 million net profit. Now, it's scary business. If you've got businesses that are loss leaders and you've got a business plan to take it where it needs to go, you may have the end in sight, but you sometimes don't have anyone, outside of your immediate network to go, is this normal? Do other businesses have lost leaders? Do other businesses have groups that are lost leaders? So to put it in perspective, this is the Octopus Group. They've got businesses in investment. They've got a business branch in Australia, which does a few of their elements. They've got a business called Money Coach, which I believe is like a training platform. They've got a business called Octopus Wealth. They've got one called Seppel, and also Aurora, which is very similar to Aura, and actually how some people pronounce Aura, I believe, in the past. but anyway, so I've just mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 companies, and in this annual report at the end of the year, only one of them actually made a net profit, which is their Octopus Investments. Outside of that group, they've also got Octopus Energy, which is a slightly different business, and actually quite a crazy influx of value because of obviously the rates of energy increasing. It's quite annoying seeing that energy companies are making so much, given that I thought that the margin was moving for them, so their cost was going up and our cost was going up. But anyhow, so it's refreshing to see that in groups there are lost leaders. It's refreshing to also see they've actually got I'm happy to share this with anyone if they reach out to us. They've actually got their structure. So who is a shareholder? It's still privately owned by some of the founders, some of the employees, and a few other people, but no actual private equity firms or anything like that. They've got their company group org chart on there, which we have. We have our own org chart. It's good to see how they structure their businesses. They've got a very similar setup to us, including a group co. And just going through each and every business, they outline how many employees, which is thousands, the funds that they're managing, the amount of investors that they've got. So, for an example, Octopus Investments is 13.4 billion in management and 70,000 investors. So you can sort of see from our perspective, obviously we're nowhere near 70,000 investors, but you can see how we can compare and alike and get ideas from businesses that have been where we are in the growth phase and learn from what they've been doing. So it was just to sort of strike that I try and read as many business reports as I can. Like Ben, I always look at Companies House, especially on surveying companies and other service-based businesses and even HMO businesses comparing to Central Suites. It's pretty difficult to analyse a development company because you kind of can't really always, you can't just overturn those stones. You've got to try and find the stones before you can overturn them when it's analysing a development company. But looking at Companies House business reports, obviously you've got public or floated companies, which are also probably not that comparable to the sizes we're at. But companies like, for an example, Shanley Group, one of the biggest privately owned development company in the UK, is only down the road from us. We can look at their accounts, see what they're doing, see what movements they're making, and try and understand that. If they produced a business report, it would be so useful for us as a business. So these things you can just Google. They normally businesses that have shareholders have to annually produce a report, and it has to be public knowledge. Any business that's turning over 10 million has to be audited and then also produced on Companies House, which basically means that if you produce audited accounts, your accounts are more detailed, so you can actually understand a lot more of the costs that go into running those businesses. And a 10 million turnover business might be where you want to be. So look at other competitors that have got there and see what are in their cost sheets, and look at revenue versus employee ratio. So if there's 100 employees, what their revenue ratio is. You could look at how many fee earners are in their employees by looking at LinkedIn and seeing how many employees are on their LinkedIn profile. And you could look at cost per employee. You could look at core overheads per employee, rent of their office per employee, and then you can work out scalable metrics to implement into your own business. And obviously there will be economies of scale and there will be differences if they're located in different places of the UK, but if you can understand what the differences are, that's a really good step for your own mind to sort of think and do that. And if you can't find the articles, ask ChatGPT to share them.
Nice. Yeah, well, one of the things that sort of I know that will come out of this type of thing, certainly with Octopus, is like the news will grab hold of this and be like, energy company generates biggest profit margin in years, 30% margin plus, and why not? They're then reinvesting into all of these other side ventures, which I'm sure will be stuff to do with renewable technology and improving the way we do things, and some of those will be losing huge amounts of money. You can't sustain a business if you don't make a profit, and I think there's a lot of people out there that think that certainly developers and estate agents and energy companies are big greedy people are just in it for profit and to screw everyone else over. But in reality, business is incredibly tough, and when you're in it, you understand that. So it's not always roses. So if you might make a very good profit margin one year, but it could be that the next few years or the 2 years before you actually made a huge loss, and you've gone through a lot of turmoil within the business, and the newspaper seems to just pick up on that one great year that's better than most. But I mean, that's just a bit of a rant. But cool, yeah, I like annual reports. I like reading financial information. I think you'll really hone your skills as a entrepreneur if you continue to do that. Cool. Number 4, show homes, furniture packs and brochures. Tame, our site in 20-unit office conversion to flats, is, I'd say, probably 85% complete now. So I'm turning my head to getting quotes for things like furniture packs. We've used so actually, I put these 2 photos on the screen because the middle one is for the first project that XP did, and we thought it would be an amazing idea to get 3 or 4 of the team together with pizzas, order all of the flat pack furniture ourselves, order stuff from Wayfair and IKEA and all these other places, and spend a few hours kind of putting it all together, and it would be a big team bonding experience. In reality, it took about 8 hours. It was awful. It was a massive waste of our time. And it didn't cost any less than what it would have done actually going to a furniture pack company such as Loft. We've used Loft sort of numerous times on various schemes now, and we've reached out again on Tame to bring them in. Just to give the listeners and viewers an idea, a 1-bed flat, fully furnished and staged, will cost you about 6 to 7 grand, and a 2-bed flat will cost you somewhere between £7,500 and £9,000. And we've done some other chats previously about the benefits of both selling faster and selling for more using staged furniture, because people can actually physically see themselves living in the space. A lot of people don't have the imagination to actually visualize where furniture is going to go, how it could look. So by giving that to them, it helps them make their decision and move things forward a lot faster. The other benefits that we've found historically is that actually, if it's like a first-time buyer, for example, they don't have furniture, so they're only going to have to go out and get some. So if you can show them that furniture, and you can actually then use that as a negotiation tool to say, look, we can throw in the furniture if if you're asking price is X, or just would you like to buy the furniture for us? And sometimes you can make a markup on that sale as well. So if we're buying a 1-bed furniture for 6 grand and we're selling it for 8, that's a good bit of margin for a bit of an upsell. So there's lots of benefits to show homes. We've used Loft and various other companies, but we do find Loft are extremely good. They'll come in, they'll unload all the furniture, put it into position, take away all the rubbish. It's kind of just full service, hassle free, and a great start to end process. One of the things that I did want to share is we've got a draft now. It's like 95% complete of our brochure for St Andrew's Court. So I thought I'd give you a quick whiz through that. I'd like to do a separate thing probably next week or the week after on how to structure your brochures, because top tip, I guess, just for now, is a lot of people start their brochures with a lot of like specification stuff and the facts, whereas that's not going to sell your property. What people want to buy into is it's the emotional side of things. It's the what's in the local area in terms of food and leisure and pubs, and how are they going to see themselves living in that area. How are they going to get to work? What are the transport links? Realistically, kind of one of the last things you're going to be talking about is actually the specification of the actual flats themselves. So you can see here we've got a bit of that. We've got a bit of travel. We've got a bit of food and the local amenities, a little bit about the specification itself. And then it goes into all of the relevant floor plans and the sizings and what you're actually then buying. I'll go through that maybe in a bit more detail another time, but it's looking good. Looking forward to getting those finalized. For this site, we have actually got a micro website created as well. So it's kind of an extension of the brochure, really. That will give us the ability to start amending things. So if we have a sale go through, we can actually update the website to say, this one's been sold, this one's been reserved, this one's still available, this one's being launched, if phase 2 is being launched. X, Y, and Z, and all of the site signage that we had installed a couple of weeks ago. And if you tuned in a couple of weeks ago, you'd have seen some of the site signage that we've installed on site. So that gets a lot of footfall. And we've got QR codes and contact information on those site boards. So people in the local area, creates a bit of a buzz. We've already had 3 people scan the QR code and request more details in the last couple of weeks, which actually I need to contact the sales agent, because they were going to ring them yesterday to see if there was any fruitful conversations coming off the back of that. But there's loads of things you can do to speed up your sales. This is a real big challenge for us. We've never sold 9 units in one go before. So we're trying to do everything we can now to make it as seamless a process as possible, because it is a tough market out there. Things are very, very difficult. Flats specifically, leasehold flats are sticking a lot more than they ever have done. And we've got 9 of those as part of phase 1. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Learning to say no. Yes, man, you can take this one.
Yeah, I mean, Yes Man's just a movie, but I've been thinking to myself a lot recently, do I just say yes to everything? And I think testament to the last week is no, I don't. And I think James Sinclair, who's also a reputable property entrepreneur, says this a lot. People see him as an entrepreneur and go, "Oh, he'll be able to sort it. He'll love this business idea or this concept." And the art of actually saying no and understanding, is it worth your time? Is it worth your attention? Is it worth your risk? Is super, super valuable. And fundamentally, the reason that this sprung across me is because I had to say no to something. So I was very fortunate to be asked to be on a trustee on a land community trust in Henley-on-Thames, which I'd love to be part of, but I just quite frankly can't give it the time that it needs. And that's one for my business and my own headspace and my own week, but also for the charity. I can't give it what the role needs. And we've been talking. I've been to a couple of their meetings, and they're talking about developing a site and need people on the as a trustee that have got experience in entrepreneurialism, financial management, development, ideally. And I've just sort of taken a step back, and I said, I can't give you what you need. I can help here and where, but I'm not committing to this, a short term or even permanently. Maybe one day we might be able to have another chat, but for the current time being, I don't have the time. And I suppose it's initially feels difficult because you seek opportunity. Obviously, that trustee group will be hugely beneficial locally. Obviously, our business will get great coverage for supporting the community. I'm already a trustee on a different charity, which is actually through the Developers Club that we're part of. And I also outlined that I couldn't give that, any more than X, and made it extremely clear from the outset. And I think just understanding how much time you can give things and not always just being a complete yes man. And I think one of the big game changers for Ben and I is we're all for helping other developers that are in similar situations that we've been in the past and giving up our time for free. But when it comes to daily calls that last an hour long, and that becomes then weekly affair, and then you've lost, 40 hours a week, 40 hours a month, that is something that we can't afford to take our eye off our own stuff and unnecessarily deviate that. So understanding and valuing your own time, understanding something else that could be, potentially a great idea, but do you actually have the time to do it, is another thing. All of the opportunities that are ever brought to us are, quite frequently, more often than not, they are a great idea or a prospect or something that we can be part of. But it's prioritizing and analysing what you have the time for. Did you have any views on that, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think point number 7 or 8, whichever one it is, that somebody asked a very similar question, which I think we'll go into a bit more detail of. But I think it's very difficult to do. And people, I have full respect for people that are so laser focused on their own goals that they find it easy to say no to things. It's something that I've definitely grown into, sort of learn how to do a lot more, because the fear of missing out and FOMO is big, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because fundamentally, you love solving problems, you love new challenges. So you're going to be swayed more towards starting something new and fresh and exciting. So having the sort of nous to say no is a massive skill set, I think, that any business owner should have. Yeah. Cool. On to some really boring stuff now. R&D tax credits. I'm not going to spend long on this because it's boring. But I'm sure if you're a business owner, you probably get like 4 or 5 phone calls every month from cold callers saying, trying to pull you into some R&D tax claims. And they certainly have their benefit. And we've just gone through the process with Aura. We're probably like 90% of the way through now. I need to catch up with the team to understand sort of how far we've gone, where we've what sort of value of claim we're sort of looking at. But we've now done it in XP surveys. We've started that process, and with XP surveys, for me, I see there being genuine R&D claims, and R&D claims. It's research and development tax credits. Effectively, the government have this process and system whereby in any business, if you're innovating, if you're researching new ways of doing things and developing new technologies and processes and systems and this sort of stuff that are game changing, one for the industry and for your company, HMRC kind of allow you to get relief on your corporation tax or get a cash sum based on a value. And the cash sum, the way they work it out, and I only found this out this week, is the cash sum, if you take it now, will be less than if you take it as a relief on your corp tax later down the line. So it really depends on where your business is and kind of cash flow in your business and what you really want from it. I think with XP surveys, we just want the cash now because we're a growing business and we'd rather have that cash to use and turn it into more cash and reinvest and do what we need to do to grow the business. But depending on where your business is, you might want to take the tax credit and just reduce your corporation bill later down the line. But effectively, with Aura, I had this conversation and I'm still not entirely sure it's a very complicated process. But I sort of approached it with the view that, well, all these challenges that you're saying could be R&D, I feel like are just my job. Like as an architect, as an engineer, like you're constantly solving problems. Why is installing a beam in a certain way or having to change the phasing of a project to allow for X, Y, and Z to happen? Why is that R&D? That just feels like my job and the solution that's right for this particular problem. And there are huge amounts of nuance in it, but there's a lot more that you can claim than I thought that would be valid. And it is about getting the right specialists on board. They've got their own PI, and effectively they're the specialists. If they're saying that there's a genuine claim here, then you have to take their word for it and push that liability onto them. So the process that we've gone through so far is explaining a little bit about our business. They've sent us some schedules and asked us some questions. We're filling out the schedules with where we think there could be claims. So even if it's in doubt, put it on the list, and then we can have a conversation with the specialist to sort of dig a little bit deeper. After that, they'll go away and do their due diligence. We've sent them our financial reports for the years that we're looking to do these R&D claims because that factors into the calculations. And yeah, like I say, with Aura, we're waiting to hear back, but it could be significant. I've spoken to a lot of architects in the past that do have tens, 20, 30,000 pounds worth of cash back into the business because of R&D. And I think for me, XP Surveys was definitely there. The amount of work and effort and cost that has gone into introducing our API integrated instant quoting tool on our website, and that system and process that works really well. It's quite substantial. So there's definitely a claim there. We're just trying to now think about projects where we've had to solve particular problems to do our work and bring it into this R&D tax process. So yeah, watch the space, let you know how it goes. Cool. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much. If you could rate us on Spotify and leave a review on Apple Podcast, that goes a really long way. And we only ask one thing of you every week, and that's to just share it with one person that you think will get value from this. If you've got lots of friends that are business owners, lots of friends that are property entrepreneurs, investors, developers, I'd like to think there's a guarantee that you will get some value out of these conversations. It's live, it's happening, we're out there doing this stuff. And these podcasts are all about giving you back some value about the things that we've learned along the way. And hopefully you can vicariously learn through that and improve your businesses and grow your businesses with us. So yeah, please do let us know in the comments as well what you think, or if you've got any questions. Cool, on to team reviews. If you're excited by some of the property developments or investments that we talk about on this show and want to know more about investing £100,000 or more with XP, email info@xpproperty.co.uk to set up a call with one of our team. we can discuss our open investment opportunities and provide you with our track record details showing with complete transparency our historic performance project by project and how you could be part of our growing pipeline of developments.
Do you want to say a bit about this?
Yeah, for sure. Been sat here quietly learning about R&D tax credits. Just to touch on those, I was told it's all the rule of thumb. If you create something that you don't believe has been done before, that's a good gauge on whether it's a potential R&D tax credit. But anyway, we'll move on to reviews. So I know Aura have been doing it for a while, but we've just instigated this in XP Property, where we actually we always have 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, and then annually reviews with all of our staff. And it's the opportunity for you to have a chat with them about, looking back on the job description which you originally wrote. Remember to pull together the requirements of the business. What does the business need? Job description's drawn out, hiring's made. Keep bringing that job description up and tweaking it and changing it and making sure that it still resonates with the original job description. Because you may find, we actually had this in our business, where you end up as a member of staff being so far removed from their job description, you've just got another person on the payroll, but the original problem isn't resolved, which then falls on normally us, the directors, to still do that task, which was the whole reason we hired a year ago to replace that. So the job description is really essential. So once you've got the job description and you're doing the 3, 6, 12 month reviews, you obviously sit down with your employee and you go through it. And we're always looking at various things. So predominantly inputs and outputs. The output is what is detailed as their tasks on their job description. And the input is their attendance, their sort of motivation, their energy, their efficiency in working, and the things that they're humanly inputting, the softer stuff. The harder stuff is the outputs. But this is the first time actually we've experienced that I've experienced, but Ben has been doing it in Aura for a while, where we let the employee present back their review to us initially to see how they think they're getting on. I think it's a great idea, and it's a lot softer, and you can sort of talk a little bit more in the detail about whether you agree, disagree, and why. Because sometimes if you're just sort of going through the review and they've already had one, some of it might not even seem like it's changed. I think it's good for them to ask themselves the question. But we
also
always
manages expectation, not manages expectations, but if they're over here and you're over here, you can just see that massive gap. Whereas if you've just said you're over here, there's no real guide or like understanding of that gap that needs to be filled. So yeah, having them say what they think and then you saying what you think, you can really clearly see if there's any really big differences.
Completely agree. And also a question we ask our staff is, what do you enjoy and what do you not enjoy? Because there might be things that they're doing really well on their job description, or not even on their job description, that they don't enjoy doing. I think the best team out there, the players that play in the positions that they enjoy. And that's really, really important as well, because you kind of want to let them sort of foster those roles that they really do enjoy into, amazing people. I actually had a quote the other day: good people work for good people, great people work for great people. And if everyone's enjoying what they're doing, you'll create a great business, which I completely agree with. We have actually talked about the review process in our previous episodes, and if anyone would want our template, just reach out. Maybe comment on here, team review or personal review template, and we can send that over to you. I didn't have too much more to add than that. Ben, did you?
Yeah, I did, because I've realised actually that there's some stuff that we added into Aura's reviews probably a year or so ago that actually hasn't made its way to the XP stuff. And it's actually more about, a review should be both ways. And I think there's a tendency with reviews that it's just, all about the employee and you feeding back information to them and not always necessarily giving them a sort of opportunity to kind of feedback to you about not just kind of the company, but the management, the culture, and their kind of potential career progression and stuff like that. So we did actually add a couple of different segments into the Aura process, whereby again we got the employee to fill them out, but it's just some questions like, how would you describe the overall company culture? What aspects do you find the most positive and engaging? And in your opinion, what are the key values or principles that guide the company culture? And actually, what we've gleaned out of that is, or what I remember sort of from previous reviews with Aura, is that Aura have a set of core values, and they're written. And then actually about 2 years ago, I said to the team when we moved into our new office, I am going to put our core values up on the wall, but I'm not going to put them up on the wall until everyone here agrees that they are our core values and understands them. So we had a good workshop about kind of what they are, and they didn't go up on the wall until everyone was kind of bought into them. But obviously, new people join the business, and people leave, people come and go. So this answering these types of questions help you understand if your employees really understand the core of the business and what you're trying to achieve. And if they don't, it's very obvious from these types of questions and their responses, what you need to do to kind of bring them on board. And like Jack says, kind of if people are enjoying working for you, they understand your long-term vision, your goals, and they're buying into that, it's only a good thing, and that they're going to work harder to try and achieve those goals together. So yeah, company culture is massive. Another question we asked: do you feel company culture supports open communication and collaboration among team members? There's a little bit about management. So again, us as leaders and managers, we need to understand how effective we're being. So how would you rate the effectiveness of our management team in creating a positive and inclusive work environment? Is there any specific areas that improvement might be needed? Do you feel your opinions are validated and taken into consideration? And then career progression. Have you had opportunity for career growth and professional development within the business? And how would you rate the support given by management and leaders in this regard? So yeah, I think that's definitely one way in which we can improve our XP team review process. I'll make sure that those are added. There's one for Christina, actually. I'll send you the questions, Christina. You can add them into our
This is becoming a common platform to communicate with Christina.
It is. This is how we communicate with our team when she watches these back. Cool. Yeah, that's a bit about team reviews. Hopefully it's been useful. To grow a business, you need to grow a team. There's no other way around it. So, the more and the sooner you can get your head around how team management works and being a leader and bringing in the right people and recruitment, the better and faster your company's going to grow. So best of luck. Cool.
This one kind of feeds on from the saying now, I think.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Because I mentioned in last episode that I have a folder of business ideas that I'd like to implement. Coincidentally, one of them has recently been implemented and become super successful. And it is actually someone that's within my friendship network. So I kind of feel that by communicating that business idea has finally been implemented. But the question from Ryan Taylor, who's one of our followers and messages me frequently. So thanks for following us, Ryan. And do go give him a follow. RMT Property on Instagram is his best channel. But you mentioned on a previous pod about having a long list of business ideas. I have the same in my notes. It's good to see that our followers problem people like us that like doing new and trying new things, like entrepreneurs. He then goes on to say, how do you stop yourself getting shiny penny syndrome and want to start a new venture, which will inevitably take your focus away from your bread and butter? It's a constant battle for me. Equally the same for me, Ryan, and there's plenty of business ideas that we want to be implementing too, in particular that Ben and I are on a ban. We're not allowed to set up any new businesses, and that's from our non-exec, our wives and our team. So yeah, I mean, to get to it, I've got a few points in here and Ben's got a few as well. So Daniel Priestley talks about setting up new businesses and trying a low-cost test and fail fast. And what he means by that is if you are going to set up a new business, make sure it doesn't cost the world to get to the point it's either going to make or break. And make sure that's a quick process and make sure that it's a low-cost process. So the way that he would normally do it is a lot of his businesses he's B2C. So he's selling to a person, a consumer. He will create a buzz and a waiting room or a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group or demand for free before he's actually launched the project. So what that may look like is he might be going, I'm thinking of launching a mastery program that's international, runs at 6 p.m. every Thursday, UK times, America can tune in, Hong Kong can tune in, blah, blah, blah. Who would be interested in it? Subscribe here. And then everyone makes a subscription. There's 2,000 people express their interest. And then he knows he's got the interest that he might need to break even on 200 people going, and it's worth his time. So it's a low-cost test and a fast fail, which is very difficult to do in any market that's not digital, because you'll have R&D, setup costs, product costs, business costs, things like that. but there's no reason that you can't test it. Another example of that is Ben and I were looking at joint venturing with two property people. One of them had a very extensive database, and the whole point was to potentially set up a routinely, I suppose, mentoring-y type program. We hit the list. There wasn't a lot of feedback, so we canned it. And that is, behind ideas and what it comes to. And that didn't cost a lot of time. There wasn't any branding. There wasn't any face behind it. It was just a fairly generic message to sort of put the hook out there to see if there was demand. So that's really demand testing. Another one we have is does it complement your other businesses? This is a huge one for me, and we're massive advocates, believers that you want to be folding your business into your existing businesses. A business firm that we work with that do a lot of our property investment, they also have investments in a car business, in a handbag business, in a haulage company, but their business model is finance. So they work on the same metrics, different sector. We work different metrics, same sector. So you've got to think about, does it actually complement what you're currently doing? Do you have to completely rebuild your businesses around that to sort of get the right mindset to make that business go? And what we have is same sector or even same clientele in some respects, but different products. And that's how we focus on folding our businesses into an ecosystem. So we can survey the site, design the site, develop the site, and manage the site, all part as one in the same sector. Third point is it part of your 10-year plan? Like for an example, one of my ideas in my, this list has been being built for 20 years. So you'll laugh when you hear this one. But one of my ideas is actually a bread cutter. I couldn't get my head around growing up why every slice was like a completely different rhombus and then triangle. And there wasn't a process where you even put like a framework over the bread and you used it to cut to guidelines, because the phrase "best thing since sliced bread." Sliced bread isn't good because it's not fresh and it's not got that authentic feel. But then try and cut a fresh loaf of bread. So anyway, that was one of my ideas. That has nothing to do with what I'm doing and isn't part of my 10-year plan. I'm not here to be the next Hovis or to cut bread. So can those silly, wild Dragon's Den ideas out of your 10-year plan, because they're not part of it, and don't probably go down the route of anything that's like that. You may hear people that say, "Oh, I want to go and do this," and you sort of think that's a bit off the wall compared to what you're doing. But anyway, ROI, so return on investment. In the Ground Up pod, we just recorded the episode 6 or 7 of the Ground Up pod, and one of the questions was, what would you do with £1 million if you wanted to build a property portfolio? And Ryan and Stuart said both put it into crypto. And I kind of feel that that's because they're well educated on it, and that they believe it's going to be 100x return 100% return in the next year. But we don't get a bad return off the back of that in our residential or development businesses for development. So I do think it's worthwhile analysing your ROI, and then also comparing that with your return on time. So for me to learn crypto over the next year, it will take far longer than actually just getting the returns that I can get in property. And that's why I sort of took everything out of crypto and just doubled down in property, because I understand it, I live and breathe it, I know it. The returns aren't as good, supposedly, but that's a very subjective market, and you can touch and feel a property. But analysing the difference between ROI and return on time, and then blending the two across what you're currently doing, because there's a phrase that I love that you would have heard of, which is definitely really common in modern day, which is the grass is greener on the other side. But the sort of caveat to that phrase is grass is greenest where you water it, which is analysing that ROI and ROT on that. A friend of mine has another phrase which is called inch wide, mile deep, which is having your niche and really, really doubling down on that and specialising in that. And, I can kind of relate to that. A lot of people say, how do you, manage 4 businesses? And the answer is quite difficultly. I'm sure if we individually had one business, or Ben was just focusing on Aura and I was just focusing on, for example, Central Suites, they would be a lot more progressed than they are at the moment. So there is something to be said for just focusing on your niche, and less is more. Ben's got a couple here. No, I've had
Yeah,
some.
life is long. Now, I think sort of my sentiment around that is that, you've probably got 6, 7 centuries of your life, where you're past your 20s to live and do stuff. So I think it goes back to a little bit about your return on your time at that particular moment. And there's always time to do new things. I look back like 10 years ago and, look at kind of property mentorship and programs and things like that. And they're still around today. Like if I'd not started 10 years ago and started now, I wouldn't be any, there's still a demand for this. There's still an opportunity here. And I think you do get fear of missing out. You think, oh, I need to do this now. I need to do this now. And in reality, there's probably only a few things or ideas that you've got that are time sensitive. And I look at XP surveys, for example, and I feel like we're behind where we need to be because that technology and that industry is growing so fast. I hear Dan Hill on Property Entrepreneur talk about it all the time, trying to ride the crest of the wave. You kind of want to get into a business where it's just taking off. So yes, there are some opportunities where maybe they are more time sensitive, but for the most part, there'll be stuff around now that will still be around in 20 years time. So just don't lose sight of the fact that life is a long time and you can always do it again another time. So can it for 10 years and start it up again if it's possible to do that. And then my other thing is about sort of spreading yourself too thin, and Jack and I are very good at doing this. We should really be focused more on certain things and looking at what will be the biggest return on investment, the biggest return on our time. But it is so easy to get distracted. And I've put here kind of, if you're trying to do 3 things and you're only giving it 33% of your capabilities, and it's only growing 33% instead of having that one thing that you are completely invested in, and you're giving it all of your attention. It's obviously going to grow faster and further if you're giving it all of that attention rather than spreading yourself across numerous things. And it's easier said than done. And when you've got 5-6 businesses like Jack and I have, it's there are some things that maybe we should have put on pause and done at a later date. But we are glutton for punishment. We like being challenged, and there's definitely a little bit of spreading ourselves too thin. But I think what I would say, kind of with Aura, for example, my goal was to kind of build that up to a certain point where you can bring in management, and that's another way of kind of talking about return on investment, return on time. If you can bring in management or the team to grow those business ideas, and it doesn't occupy too much of your time, and you're bringing in the right people, then that is a massively, an amazing way of making something work and not necessarily draining yourself too much. I'd caveat that with, I'd suggest kind of building a business to a certain size, bringing in some management and allowing it to run itself before then starting a new venture and doing the same thing again, because startup businesses are very, very time intensive. And even if you are bringing in the right team, you're still going to have to give your own input. And we've certainly learned that with XP surveys. We don't have necessarily a second in command or managing director. So Jack and I are still involved in growing that business, and therefore it's growing slower than it should be because we have huge amounts of other stuff going on as well.
I will add to that the whole 33% of time. We talk about time, devotion, and attention to a business.
As you as a person,
as an individual. I will add that, because one of my pet peeves is where someone's in a 9-to-5 day job and they want to take a leap, they can't. Just work a few extra hours a day for your own stuff and give it 100% of that time, because if you're doing extra, it's not taking from the original. So my view is one of the reasons we have been able to manage 3 businesses is because we won't do 40-hour weeks. We'll do more hours than that so that we can warrant to do that, and we've committed to doing that. So just to sort of caveat that with that. And one last thing I would finally say, which isn't on there, is if you do, and this is something we've only really started to turning the screw on fairly recently, if you've got a business and a project that you're working on, and you're kind of like looking at other things and you're fancying doing something else, just maybe focus on that business and also your personal profile. Because when the day does come that you want to do something else, your profile will really help give you a kickstart in that new business as well.
Yeah, that's actually massive, especially in this day and age. And I know kind of some people shy away from the social media and sort of raising personal brand and personal profile, but in today's day and age, it's massive. If you look at somebody like Mr. Beast, who it doesn't matter what business he's setting up, he's got 1 billion followers around the world. Any business that he sets up is gonna have some success because at the click of a finger, he's got a massive database of loyal fans and followers that will just buy his stuff because they know him and he's built that personal brand so big that they will buy from him. So yeah, in this day and age, I do think, I mean, we've spoken about this before, but yeah, personal brand I think is huge and is only going to get bigger, in my opinion. Cool. Top tip for business planning number 9. And I wanted to raise this because Jack and I, bank holidays for business owners like us are often actually really, really good for just taking stock and having no disruptions from the team or anyone else. Everyone else is off enjoying themselves, and typically on a bank holiday weekend or a bank holiday Monday, it's a good opportunity to meet up and spend 3 or 4 hours just looking at the businesses and strategizing and actually prioritizing what things are the most, what are going to turn the needle the most for our businesses. I mean, that's what Jack and I did on Sunday. So we met in a hotel just for 4 hours for lunch to run through all of the key things that we need to think about in the business. What are the key bottlenecks? Who do we need to get in place? What do we delegate to who? And what are the real risk factors, I guess, over the next 6 months? And it's so easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day of your businesses to take out 4 hours. We do this with our business coaching, 4 hours a month, dedicated to just no distractions, taking the time out, looking at your goals, looking at how to break them down, what key actions will get you to the next level. And I just cannot emphasize the importance enough of taking that time out. And we should be doing it more because when you look at people like, I think it's Bill Gates, who takes 2 weeks every year to just lock himself in a log cabin and read books. And that time is just so powerful when he comes back rejuvenated with amazing ideas, with strategies in his head about how to grow the business and what's the right direction and things like that. So take the time out. It is important. It's counterintuitive not to. That's my top tip for business planning.
And remember, if one of the richest men, self-made richest men on earth, has time to take 2 weeks out of his day every year, which is ridiculous. It's like insane. You have time. That's 5% of his year that he just up sticks and buggers off.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we had 2 other questions in from is it Ryan Taylor?
Yeah.
RMT Property. First one being, I know you have a property mentorship group, but what would you say is the importance of a business mentor? Do you have one? And at which point during setting up a new business would you engage one? I think it's probably worth saying that Jack and I met through a mentorship thing. This is how we originally got together. We both had the same mentor via a property education platform. And it wasn't long before the sort of mentor said to both of us, I think you'd get on really well. I think you've got similar goals and aspirations, meet up and have a coffee. And that's where it all started really for XP. So, I think it's fundamental to business growth, having someone that's either been there before to guide you. We have non-exec directors in our business where, we meet up every quarter, every month via Zoom, and then face-to-face every quarter to basically sit there and have the hard questions asked by somebody outside the business that has more of a helicopter view. So I think as soon as you possibly can get some form of mentorship and coaching, absolutely do it. Stand on the shoulders of giants. I've heard that a lot lately. Find people that are out there doing it themselves. Find people that are 1 year ahead of you, 2 years ahead of you, 5 years ahead of you. Buy them a coffee, buy them a lunch. Try to tap into their knowledge, and you won't look back.
Yeah, I completely resonate with that. It amazes me when there is pushback on spending on your own business mentorship or your own self-development. If you took up golf, one of the first questions someone that is good at golf would say is, have you booked in any lessons? If you went to go to the gym and you didn't know what kit to use, one of the first things someone would say is, have you sought a personal trainer? If you were trying to cook a recipe but you didn't know how to do it and you Googled a recipe, you're leaning on someone else that's created it. So a mindset thing is you cannot run a business without support externally. That's just a fact. You can, but it won't be anywhere near as effective, efficient, scalable, or whatever you want to call it. So I feel like, Ben, we've always been very open to learning, business mentorship, business growth. We've actually booked to go on to 3-day sort of business, I don't know what you call it, masterclass this summer. And forever, you're never not learning, and you kind of have to always be open-minded. Yeah, granted, some people might not add as much value as others, but I think even sometimes, in our business coaching in XP surveys, it might actually be me and Ben coming up with the ideas, but the business coach is teasing them out of us sometimes and asking those right questions. Whereas actually, some business mentors have the ideas, and we're just realizing that they're right in the implementation. So, massive advocate. I believe that in any capacity, you should always have mentors. You don't always have to have a paid mentor. I know a lot of people that kind of build a relationship with someone, normally generations above or a generation above, and just bounce ideas off them. It could literally be anyone. It could be an uncle, it could be a friend, it could be a brother, it could be a dad, it could be anyone that you could potentially think of that could potentially be a mentor is someone. So I've almost got like a mentor that I check in with time to time, and that he's super invested in what I'm doing, and but he's in charge. I just go to lunch with him from time to time. And a friend can be a mentor as well. I feel that now we've scaled our businesses to where we are, a lot of my friends check in with me, and I'm asking them questions about what's next, and do they want to scale it? Where does their time go when they go from technically being the person that's delivering the product to then managing people delivering the product. And I just think it's super essential. And if you haven't got a business mentor, there's various different ways you can find them. There's paid non-exec advisors. I would recommend reaching out to your network. That's definitely a good place to start. Put out Facebook, LinkedIn posts. Start thinking, who do you know, like, and trust that's a successful person? That doesn't have to be in business. That could be in, whatever career they're in. And can you start, just say to them, look, I want a third person to bounce ideas off. Can we meet up once a quarter for dinner? I'm paying. That could be hugely valuable. Is probably where I would start.
Nice. I was going to go into a bit of story because I'm not sure you even know this, but like 13 years ago, when I graduated from uni, I played poker for a living, for those that don't know. And I built up a decent amount of cash and was looking at ways in which I could invest that. And at the time I had 10 grand, and I was like, right, what do I do with this? And I had two options on the table at the time. At that particular time, like, solar PV panels were massive. The feed-in tariffs were huge, and they were, sort of double-digit returns. And I was looking at putting a bank of PV panels on my mum and dad's house at the time for both the feed-in tariffs and actually the return that we'd get on the solar saving on the energy. And I remember it was 10 grand, 9 grand, and it would have been a 12% yield, 12% return on that. And I thought, that's pretty good. That's a good investment. And but it was either that, or it was spending £7,500 on a property education platform, a 12-month mentorship program. And I went with the mentorship program because, for me, investing in myself at that time was the biggest return on investment for me ever. I wanted to go more into the industry. I wanted to learn about creative ways about doing things. And this wasn't progressive, Jack. This was before, many years before progressive. And that year was the first year I bought my first property. It was the first investment I made. Through the mentorship, I learned all about how to structure deals, the sort of way you could multiply and refinance assets and go again and get your money back out. And I turned a 1-bedroom flat into a 2-bedroom flat, added 30 grand of value straight away. It happened to be the flat that is part of the block in which Jack and I developed the basement of 4 or 5 years ago. So we've actually built 2 flats in the basement as XP of that block of flats. So that return on investment, not only with the knowledge that I learned, but the physical hard cash return that I've made out of that £7,500 is hundreds of thousands of pounds over the last sort of 12, 13 years. And that was because I invested in myself and found a business mentor, found a property mentor. And yeah, I can't say enough really about the importance of having that sort of direction and learning from people that have been there and done it.
Yeah, I've got a fun story as well on mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, who was my early door mentor, super successful guy, especially at that time. And really long story short, I actually won almost like a 24 hours mentorship with him. where he just sort of came to where I was. We went out so did half a day and then another half a day. On the way back from the sort of investment area we were looking at, my car broke down in a lay-by, and it's on the M40, and I always pass it. And I always say to myself, that's probably the most valuable lay-by to me in the UK, because it gave me that extra time to like build an actual long-lasting relationship with my mentor at that time, who's now a lifelong friend, came to my wedding, check in with him from time to time, and you know, it's quite comical that you know, I felt that was the difference. But those are the way things goes, and people are people. And one thing I would add to that is, you know, look for a mentor that potentially sees themselves in you, but obviously 30 years behind. But yeah, cool. Good question. Should we move on to the next one? This one might sound really simplistic, but how do you work out your business critical mass, and something you speak about a lot, but it's never known how to calculate this for XPP? So I talk about critical mass, and it kind of depends.
Or is that?
So you can go on to the next slide. Yeah. So critical mass is kind of, it's basically for every vehicle, you know, that whether that be a small company, medium company, large company, they will each have optimal operational value, and that is what the team looks like, what revenue it's bringing in, what its costs are, what its profits are. So we talked about business plans for Octopus earlier today, but there'll be an optimal trading value, and that may be, for an example, using some local businesses to us. Our surveying business, for the amount of overhead that our staff have, we have an optimal revenue amount, which will create an optimal profit amount. If you then look at XP Property, when we set up the business, it was just Ben and I. So what you can see here on this graph is the blue line is revenue. So for the podcast listeners out there, we're talking about sort of stepping up to create a larger overhead business, create a large revenue business, and the phasing to do that, and at what point critical mass is realised again. So when it was Ben and I again, we had to do less revenue. Our cost was super light because it was just Ben and I, and we were making a clean and easy profit. As soon as you see that jump in costs, that is hiring the team around us. So I believe we now have something like 6 or 7 employees in XP Property, and that comes at a cost. So you can't keep the revenue the same because your costs have gone up. But as a result of your costs going up, your capabilities to dealing with higher revenue is higher. So you can boost your revenue. So that comes in a sort of delayed fashion, that Ben and I knew we needed to hit higher critical mass of revenue. So we've increased our revenue because we've got a higher cost, and therefore our profit takes a hit for maybe however that long, maybe whether it's a service-based business, that might be a few months, but in XP Property, it's actually a few years because we're playing a longer game here. And then you start to get into higher profit margins because you've reached critical mass. Another phrase for this is break-even point. So if you work out for your business what your unit rate of break-even point. So for an example, in XP Property, our break-even point is basically how much profit we make against our overheads to run our business. Back when I mentioned it was Ben and I, that might be 100K. Now it's probably 4 times that. So our break-even point is that value. But critical mass is taking a step back and looking at what speed and size is that business optimal to be operating at. And every business is different. And as soon as you then go into a national business, it will completely change again. Profit margins will decrease. Costs will be a bit more linear. Revenue will be a bit more linear. And I actually think the biggest and most difficult jump for a business is from one-man band to an SME company. That is the most difficult, because as soon as you go beyond that to a bigger entity, you've kind of already broken the back of the big jump in costs and cash flowing that big jump in costs. So any business that has been running for decades, that's turning over 10 million, I think can quite easily scale up because it's just more of the same. But it is definitely not more of the same going from a team of 2 directors or 1 director to 7 or 8 employees and a high revenue margin. So that's how we work out the critical mass. And this is obviously all fed off a spreadsheet. So we actually have this in a spreadsheet. And then if you go next again, I've done one for XP Surveys. So to tell you what that looks like again, because we talked about folding another business into your businesses, XP Surveys started off super profitable because it was just 1 surveyor and all of our existing in-house work, which was probably about 30 to 40 Ks worth of work, and also any external work that we brought in. So if you can look at the bottom left-hand column, our costs were lower than our revenue and profit to start off. immediately we were making a profit in year one, which was great. Very rare for a business from a standstill to be doing that. But then we wanted to scale a team. So we started hiring people, buying kit, getting cars, building the branding, sponsoring events, etc. And because Ben and I are not fee earners in that business, it was a loss-making business for a short period of time for the longevity of the business, which then pushes it into a higher revenue, high profit margin, and a steady cost growth business. So XP surveys, because Ben and I are not fee earners, if Ben and I were fee earners, it could probably be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 500k revenue business and make margin, because we wouldn't necessarily be charging our full, charging. But we're not surveyors; we're business owners, so we have to have people in the business to do that. As soon as we believe we get to like 7, 8, 900k plus revenue, is when that team is being paid for and outweighed by the revenue and the profit, because we're not fee earners. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think there's this green line should probably be like the J curve that people talk about with startups, where by the very early days you're investing heavily and probably not turning a profit for a while until you hit that critical mass, and then hopefully it's more exponential after that. I think another point to talk about, because we have gone through this literally the last week in terms of internal structure and team structure, in terms of working out what your critical mass as a business is, certainly as a property development business. We've had conversations recently because we've done we've started 5 projects in the last 3 months. And actually, in hindsight, we probably could have done with some extra resource and hands on deck from a project management perspective. So we've been looking at actually, right, how many project managers internally, how many projects can the internal project managers cope with at any one time? And the reality is it's probably 2 to 3 as opposed to 4 to 5, which we've been trying to do. So looking at your internal team structure, you might think you might be able to break that down in terms of, if I've got 2 project managers, they can each do 2 to 3 projects each. So we can do maybe 5 to 6 projects. And that's our critical mass from a resourcing perspective. But we've mentioned this time and time again, doing a £200,000 new build project as opposed to a £2 million office conversion, it can take the same amount of time and same amount of resource from that project manager. So it goes back to some of the conversations we've had about financial planning and management in terms of what turns the needle for your business, what margin are you trying to achieve, what does the end look like, and then working back from that in terms of making sure that you're resourcing for making sure that revenue that you're generating, the profit margins that you're generating are sustainable with the team that you've got and the delivery pipeline that you're going into. So it's a difficult thing to look at, and every business will be different. But that's why I guess sort of business coaching and consultancy is always a good place to start.
Yeah, I think a good story that I've always been told before is you will never ever really see a successful restaurateur that's got between 2 and 6 restaurants, because you either need to hit scale and be have management in that manage those and almost build like a very scalable business model, or you need to have one high margin restaurant, and that's a good one to think about because it's almost ridiculous. Actually, I've actually got a fact. It's Shake Shack took 14 years or something around that to open its second branch, and then it took another 8 years for it to open its third branch, and then within 8 years from that date it had something like 450 branches. So it just goes to show the growth stress of like critical mass management, and then once you hit the jackpot on the critical mass of that new business, it's so super easy to scale it even further. But it's that gap of understanding where that critical mass comes from. From Ben and I, it was 2 people in a devco, then a team. If we wanted to be a national home builder, that would be our next critical mass target, and we would need severe capital investment and time and targets and non-exec boards that have done it before and all that sort of stuff. But that critical mass is, once it's understood that's a really key thing to target for.
I hear James Sinclair a lot on his podcast talk about never buying a business that's less than £1 million revenue. And I can kind of understand why. And the main reason is that at £1 million revenue, typically you've got the management in place to grow. And that period between 100 grand revenue, 6 figures and 7 figures is bloody hard work. Having grown Aura, having grown XP Surveys, growing the team, building the management, building the systems and processes, that is such a difficult period to be in. So if you can get to that £1 million revenue mark, get the management in place as quick as you possibly can, I guarantee you'll have an easier ride in terms of scaling it beyond that point. But it's a difficult place to be in for sure. Cool. Well, this is the longest, I think, episode that we ever had, but hopefully people have found it valuable and enjoyable. Please do like, follow, comment and share it and do all that good stuff. Hopefully we'll see you at the HMO Awards, and we'll be here this time next week, 5 p.m. on Friday. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye. These live Q&A episodes are all about helping you grow your business and build a property portfolio that provides financial wealth. If you have specific topics that you'd like us to discuss, make sure to comment on the platform you're listening on or email info@xpproperty.co.uk so that we can discuss your topic in future episodes. And if you found these conversations valuable for growing your business, make sure to click that follow button, and we'd really love for you to tell just one person about us. Thank you.